Welcome back to the SEO Weekly, where queries are weird, advice is controversial, and everything depends. I'm your host, Garrett Sussman of iPullrank, and each week I cover everything in the world of SEO. We're talking blog posts, Google updates, communities, new tools, you name it, I got it. If you're into this, please take a moment, subscribe to the channel, maybe give us a like, leave us a comment below, because this week we are talking about, will SEO be around in 20 years? Will it still be a thing? Also, inevitably, we got to give a helpful content update for the third week in a row. And indexing and crawling. Is it going to be a problem? Is it going to be a focus in SEO? It's come up a few times. Let's dive in. Okay, here we are into week 2 and the helpful content update. And you know I have to kind of give updates on it, but you know what? Sister tweeted, they've been looking, they've been paying attention, and there's, in their opinion, no relevant changes after the first week. In fact, the only one they found by Johannes Buis was basically this needle in a haystack foodandwine.com website with, I mean, they did have a ton of thin, not helpful content, and they did see a dip in their rankings, but that's like one example among a sea of minimal volatility. So Glenn Gabe saw that and tweeted. He was like, days into the rollout and still very quiet. I have no idea what's going on with the helpful content update, but so far it's not even close to what I thought it would be. There's still time, so things could change, but underwhelming so far. Now, remember, he did actually speak with the search team, and they said this was going to be a substantial update. We'd see a lot of changes. Maybe they didn't say it was going to be as big as Panda with like 11% of the SERPs changing, but they were implying it was going to be bigger than a core update. Now, Danny Sullivan, search liaison for Google, did respond, and he said, the update isn't done. It's also part of a continuing effort, as we've explained. Little snark, but probably not intentional with his tone. We'll keep refining how it works. Directionally, the guidance we've given is what SEOs and creators should be considering. And in essence, just that reminder that make people first content, don't build SEO just for the search engines, don't do completely raw AI automated content. They didn't say that explicitly, but they're like, don't do automated content. They provided their holistic guidelines in the update, as they always do with just creating good, helpful content. That said, still a week left. Maybe the big volatility will come at the end. It's ongoing, so we'll always see fluctuations, but it doesn't feel like even a core update or, the 2 weeks after the product reviews update. We'll keep an eye on it, but as of yet, bookus, still, tumbleweeds floating along. But enough about the helpful content. Enough about the helpful content update. Let's move on. So the other day, I'm thinking to myself, I've had a daughter. What if she wants to go into the world of SEO when she becomes an adult and enters the workforce? Is that even a possibility in 20 years? Will SEO even be a thing in 20 years? Well, I asked SEO Twitter, and oh my, do they have opinions. Everyone has an opinion. And first, let me say, enough snark all around. SEO is dead. Isn't SEO already dead? Didn't SEO die like 15 million times already? Obviously, SEO hasn't died, but I think it's a legitimate question. And the answers ran the gamut, but ultimately, it had to do with semantics. It had to do with, what will a search engine be? Will people still need to search for things? What is an SEO going to be doing? What is that skill set? So some of the interesting replies that I got is, first off, Linda Nelson Allen says, 20 years? No. By then, there will be a company that basically owns information and will be the primary source of accessing that information. Further, things will be integrated to the degree that there won't be an internet that we would recognize. It will always be on there. Sorry for the British accent, Lyndon. I had to try and I butchered it. That said, he doesn't think it's going to be necessarily about SEO. It's going to be about who controls the information and that humans won't necessarily have anything to do with it. It'll be some corporation that tells you what to read. Holly Miller Anderson said, absolutely. Hopefully in 20 years, we'll be working on making digital experiences more accessible, which I hope that's the case too. I hope everyone can participate in the web and we're not worrying as much about the SEO aspect of things. Mark Thomas said, technology and services take way longer to die than people expect. For example, this story on the front page of BBC News in the UK today, floppy disks in Japan, trying to get rid of them. Apparently, people still use floppy disks in Japan. So he's saying, you know, the tech's not going to move that fast. The SEO is going anywhere. Taco Verdo said, I think the only way the answer to this question can be no is if you truly think that people will have stopped searching at all by then, which I can't imagine. If you ever seen Wreck-It Ralph 2, the whole concept around there is like there's going to be this knowledge desk where you can figure out anything that you want. Mohammed Ramiz Arif said, SEO will stay the same. However, search engines will be entirely different. Dependence on words to make queries will be gone, which that's hard to kind of fathom. You know, we are so used to how Google and Bing and DuckDuckGo operate as search engines, yet, you know, Baidu and China and not Yandex, but Baidu, like some of the search engines in other countries work completely different, especially when you're using a different alphabet and they think about search differently. So maybe there will be a search engine that we don't completely understand. Jamar Ramos said, yes, but people will call it another name, like organic marketing. SEO limits it to seem like a channel rather than a number of channels that bring organic traffic to a brand. And I think Jamar makes a really good point. Talked a lot about how search engines aren't just Google, that social media are search engines, and that it's all about a general organic, not just the way we think of search engines as typing in to Google and index and figuring out information that way. You have to think about all of organic. I like that thought process. Rob Woods had a popular response, which was, yes, people will search for things online platforms. So there will be the need to optimize those things and how one sends information to those platforms. Will it be 90% different than it is today? Probably. So as long as people are searching, there will be SEO. It's just not going to look like the way that we do SEO these days. And Andrew Prince said, yes, it may look different with social platforms, apps, voice, etc., like Rob said, but there will always be a platform where people are searching and there will be a need to fill with applicable results. So Andrew's with Rob. There's always going to be that sort of, you know, need for search and whatever the platform looks like. Meanwhile, there were a couple of hilarious science fiction related types of answers. For instance, Damian Anderson said, and I don't know if I'm with him on this. I'd love to hear your thoughts, but in 10 years, we will access a mesh of the web and physical world via an interface-less device. Learning personal algo and biosensors will interpret our needs, preempting search. SEOs will still be hustling, tending the digital garden, and Lyndon Nelson Allen will be extra sassy. I actually do agree with Damien on some points. I do think that search results will become more personalized. It depends on the direction of data privacy, but being able to get a search result that is very kind of targeted and curated for you makes a lot more sense for your personal needs. And in terms of the mesh of the web and physical world, if we are doing the VA thing, if Google Glasses ever become a thing or VR and Meta actually succeed and making people, jump into that sci-fi world, the way that we search, whether it's voice search or with gestures or with brain waves, that would have some impact on what SEO looks like, whether or not we're doing anything for it. Speaking of brainwaves, Roxana Stingu took it even further. We might end up optimizing neuronal connections on actual human brains to show better targeted ads in people's dreams at the rate SEO has been evolving these past few years. Please no, Roxana, please no. That is a dystopian sci-fi universe, Black Mirror-esque, if you will. 20 years, maybe 50, 100, we'll see. And finally, bringing it back to this semantics between SEO and content, Christine Schlesinger basically says, whatever we do to make websites better is completely transferable to just making websites better. So if SEO doesn't exist, the same skills can be used as long as websites exist, which I think is relevant. It might not be optimizing in the same way, but if websites exist and we're making content for them, SEO kind of still exists, to which Jonas Stickler finally says, question is, will websites exist in 20 years? Jonas, what do you think? Will SEO be a thing in 20 years? I thought it was an awesome conversation, a lot of perspectives out there. Okay, if you are one of those responsible SEOs or organizations that have actually implemented GA4 and are tracking your analytics that way, well, today is your lucky day, because if you need to start reporting your SEO performance to the C-suite or to a client, well, Christina LaVasseur has put together a beautifully designed Google Data Studio template branded with her media sesh, but you can change it up when you copy and start using it. Basically connect your GA4 and then you can see all those beautiful statistics all around, sessions and total users and engagement rate and conversions. And then you can look down by device, and I got to give her a little crap. She has smart TV in there. Honestly, who out there is going on the web with their smart TV? Not a judgment. Okay, it's kind of a judgment, but I'm genuinely curious. Like, who's on their smart TV? Like, the interface is awful, like, to be able to look at a website, but maybe that's you. That's cool. That's cool. Check out this report. You can make a copy. It's free. Awesome work by Christina. Kudos, and what a great, asset for the community. Check it out. So I've covered it in the past about TikTok as a search engine, and Lydia Infante went on Moz and she asked, is TikTok going to replace Google? What do you need to know? Well, okay, her answer is no, it's not going to replace Google. It is building its own search engine in China, apparently, and it is continuing to grow massively. But is it going to actually replace it? Probably not. Not in the same sense that Reddit's not going to actually replace Google, or maybe, I don't know. But one thing that she did that I thought was really interesting is Lydia did a deep dive into the SERPs, and she saw that TikTok is showing up on the SERPs. What they actually did with their Discover content is they're like building out 31 million pages programmatically around like topics and hashtags and sounds. So now when you are searching for a variety of different content, TikTok videos and articles are, well, not articles, but videos are showing up towards the top of the SERPs. In fact, like since June of this year, the visibility index has like up and to the right. If you are a sports team or you're doing streaming services or you're an entertainer, fashion, beauty brands, restaurants, food bloggers, travel brands, influencers, home and DIY, you should probably be on TikTok. I mean, not only are you going to be showing up on the actual platform, but people might end up finding you on Google more often than not. Really cool article by Lydia. You don't have to worry about TikTok replacing Google, but if you're doing any sort of omni-channel SEO, as she points out, you want to pay attention to the social media platform. So Bill Slawski, who passed away recently, his SEO by the Sea website blog, which has covered Google patents for decades, with some of the most insightful kind of deep dives into those patents and what they potentially could mean for SEO, the other day actually, kind of disappeared. It went offline. Well, SEO community, specifically Sam Partland, brought this to the attention of the hosting platform SiteGround, and SiteGround's doing a major, awesome service for the industry. They agree that the blog holds significant value for the SEO community, which is why they have reactivated the service, and it is going to be accessible again. I think that it is an amazing gesture on them, and it's really important content. So if you want to read anything that Bill wrote on SEO by the Sea, go check it out. Thank you, SiteGround. Appreciate you. I think it's the right thing to do. This week, there was a fantastic interview by Dr. Marie Haynes. She had Alan Kent, who is a developer advocate on the Google search team. He's working with the product reviews update. They talked all about e-commerce, talked about a range of different topics, like in terms of this pros and cons structured data. They talked about the product review update, like how did they get created, all about machine learning and what role that plays, how Google employees don't really know all the details of the algorithm, EAT, which is Dr. Haynes' specialty. Like she wrote the book, not the book, but she's written a ton of articles all about EAT and expertise. And actually, Alan gave some insights in terms of like what is an expert. So check out the video. Highly recommend you watch it and listen to all of the kind of hints, if you will, that he gives about providing high quality, expert, authoritative, trustworthy content that'll get ranked, especially in the context of e-commerce. So there is a really nasty trend out there in terms of internal site search spam. John O. Anderson of Yoast posted a really great article all about it. Basically, what happens is shady marketers will go onto your website and they will put in a search where they actually put their own website with some marketing copy and search for it. And if you don't have your robot text files or your Yoast plugin or whatever plugin you have for managing what's getting indexed set up properly, those searches could actually be indexed and ranked on Google for what could be a very embarrassing, article related to your blog or your brand, all about some crappy porn or dating website. Fortunately, Yoast, for instance, allows you to no index those, so you're safe, but it could do some real damage to your brand. So if you've ever seen that issue come up where you're seeing your internal site searches being indexed on Google, you want to use your robot.txt file and get ahead of that quickly. Highly, highly recommend it. Otherwise, it's embarrassing. Okay, so I'm not going to pretend to be an SEO developer engineer, but my friend Colt Sliva is, and he wrote an epic, badass guide on Wix, all about how you can use Python and Wix's Velo to create this intense, not real website, but basically create content expansion. So programmatically building out using AI, like image AI and content generation AI, to test out the stickiness, as he calls it, of product pages. So in this epic deep dive with codes and examples and video walkthroughs by the man Colt himself, he goes into like scripting with Chrome snippets feature, scraping a website with Puppeteer, cleaning up a file of messy data, how to write strong programmatic product descriptions, recoloring product images on the fly, and then building the API. He acknowledges with the helpful content update that you can't just, bleh out automated content without Google, thinking that it's kind of fishy. So he goes through like quality aspects of it. A lot of it is beyond me, but I know Cole and I know how impressive this is. So if you are a developer and you're looking to test out, scaffolding your product pages at scale and test out the content before you invest and really, make it unique to whatever your business is, you got to check out this article. It's impressive. There's one topic that comes up a lot that's really interesting to SEOs, but actually doesn't impact a ton of them. And that's all around crawl budget. Crawling, Google looking at your site, then rendering, evaluating what content's on the site, and then indexing so it actually shows up on Google search comes up all the time, because if you can't get indexed, then nobody's going to find you on Google. Now, Martin MacDonald wrote a blog post, first time in a while, kudos to him, on Web Marketing School, and he dove into this idea of how site speed might impact crawl budget. Now, there are some assumptions made, but ultimately the idea is that Google invests resources in crawling and ultimately indexing. And so why would it want to crawl crappy sites that take forever to load? That requires processing power. So he was doing a little experimentation, and paraphrasing Martin Splitt, he pointed out that like less than 10% of sites actually face a crawl budget issue. But if you're running into a situation where Google is discovering your content but not indexing, now naturally you might have crappy content, but it might be a a site speed issue. So if it takes forever for Google to, load up your content, then why would they invest their resources in crawling it? They might not. So, Martin points out that if you improve your site speed, well, not only will you provide a better user experience for people who visit your site, but you're giving Google the chance to potentially crawl and render more content than they would otherwise and not move on to another site that's easier to crawl. His conclusions are the faster your site, the more pages you can get crawled. Obviously, the more pages crawled, the more can be indexed. The more indexed, the better chance you have to rank. And the better chance you have to rank, the more traffic you're going to get. I think it was an interesting article worth checking out. And then meanwhile, in the world of Twitter, Jamie Indigo read a great tweet. So looking at the myths and facts about crawling on the actual developer's documentation, they have a bunch of myths and then say what they are. She says, the faster your pages load and render, the more Google is able to crawl. So there you go. And then to extrapolate further, interesting thought piece by Dan Taylor. Dan wrote, and he claims it might be a conspiracy theory, but Google is already making judgment calls on which URLs they're including in the index based on what they perceive to be. And he articulates direct duplications of the page content, duplication of the value proposition, and duplication of user satisfaction, e.g. the content serves the same purpose as other content on the website on a different URL when it comes to answering a user query. So basically, he's hypothesizing that Google is not going to be indexing content that not only is just exactly the same as like duplication, but also has the similar value proposition. He's saying that the next big step in the world of SEO is indexing going to be a challenge? If Google is not going to index all of your content because there's so much content out there, and as mentioned, they only have so many resources and they want to limit the amount of money they spend crawling in the first place, maybe just maybe you need to be a little more selective when it comes to the content that you try to get indexed. So what do you do? 100% indexed in the future is not likely a reality, according to Dan. You can't just submit and request every page not indexed for indexing. You need to be more tactful about it and prioritize. And you need ultimately content volume and quantity are subjective to what's required on a query and topic basis. So it makes a lot of sense what Dan's saying in terms of Google's not going to be indexing everything. You're not entitled to be indexed. And so you need to be much more strategic in the content that you're producing and also the content that you're trying to get indexed. Interesting deep dive, might be a conspiracy theory, but ultimately worth thinking about, especially if you're working on an enterprise website with millions of pages. So Ryan Jones put together an SEO news aggregator called SEO News Pro. Basically, it aggregates RSS feeds from Search Engine Journal, Search Engine Land, Search Engine Roundtable, the official Google Webmaster Blog, and of course, his own satirical website, WTF SEO. A great way to keep up with the news. So that'll be a useful one to bookmark. And then Joe Hall actually put together a new video course, HTML for SEO. Basically, it's a beginner's course to learn all about, HTML down with JavaScript, the difference between HTML and CSS styles, and then how that impacts SEO for like title tags, meta robots tags, meta description tags, canonical, structured markup, links, images, you name it. It's a paid course, but Joe's been doing it for a hot minute. He's been doing SEO for a while, so he's a great person to learn from. So check out that course. And a little different from SEO, but iPullrank a few weeks ago had our meetup in Brooklyn, New York. I couldn't make it. I was on parental leave at the time, but the team got together. It was our 8th anniversary. It was awesome. Basically, everyone was hanging out, trying to improve the agency, learning about each other, some team building exercises. There's actually 3 daily recaps of the event. So cool. The one thing I did want to point out, though, is we are still collecting beta testers for our rank tracking software, Exact Science. It's going to be a game changer. It looks at a whole different variety of factors. You can sign up. So click on the link on the blog post in the descriptions. Check out everything that we did at the retreat and sign up to be a beta tester to try out Exact Science. It'll be awesome. And we'd love your feedback. And finally, Rankable, another great episode last week. I talked to Arish Abwali, who's the head of SEO at Papier. We talked all about in-house SEO, everything from working within your department to working across departments on SEO, working and fighting for content resources and making win-win SEO content recommendations. She gave her opinion on e-commerce and Black Friday coming up. She even gave her thoughts on the helpful content update. Really great interview. Check it out. This week, I'm talking to Rob Lennon. Now, Rob is actually in demand generation for Maven, but he has some very strong opinions on AI content. He has this theory all around topic constellations, which are really interesting. So keep your eyes peeled for that episode of Rankable that'll be coming out on Wednesday. That's it. Another awesome episode of the SEO Weekly. My name is Garrett Sussman of iPullrank. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe on the YouTube channel. Like the video, leave me a comment, find me on Twitter, all that jazz. Thank you again for watching. I really appreciate you. I will catch you next week.